Good morning everybody from Glencoe, just below the Three Sisters, which many of you will recognise. I'm here on a photography workshop. It is mid-February, so we're hoping for a lot more snow, but unfortunately this week has been a little bit dry and the snow melted just before we came. So we've been going high into the mountains to enjoy the snow that there is up there, and today we're going higher than we have on the previous days, up into Corrin and Lochen, which is just up there. So we've got about 800 meters of ascent to do today in total if we try and get to Stob Corrin and Lochen, the peak above that valley. Whether we'll get up there I don't know, but I'm hoping to find some amazing rime ice covered cliff faces and a nice snowy landscape. As ever, we're walking at a nice steady pace up here, but I am blowing because of course I've been hanging back to shoot little bits of video, running all over the place, and it is steep up here, but these guys are going much more steadily in front of me up here.
This is how you'll feel on this trip. Wrecked.
Crampons are on, and we've stopped for a cup of tea, a bite to eat, and to photograph this little cascade here. So the great thing about crampons, these things, is you can pretty much go anywhere on good ice and good snow. I mean, you still have to be a little bit careful, as Jane is demonstrating here, stamping into the ice, making sure the points really bite, but you can imagine you can't really stand on that ordinarily, so I'm going to get in there as well and see if I can find a photo. Again en route to get an alignment between this cascade, which is frozen with these incredible icicles, and the crag behind. So we've actually moved the group back down the slope that we just walked up just to improve that alignment. So there's a really lovely portrait image here aligning that waterfall with the crag above. I love approaching scenes like this because the creativity is actually happening as I'm hiking towards the frozen waterfall, and I'm imagining that it would be possible to get a view of the crag that I know is there aligned with this waterfall, even though I couldn't actually see the crag as I was walking up the hill. And so then I'm looking to my left at the high ground to see if there's going to be some ground which is going to give me that perspective and alignment that I need, which of course worked out beautifully here. And this ice is just absolutely stunning with this subtle blue hue to contrast against the more neutral greys and whites of the snow and ice on the crags. So really pleased with this one. It's about 1 o'clock, so we have stopped for a bite of lunch, but also to photograph the crags above us, which have climbing groups on them at the moment. So I've turned to amateur adventure sports photographer, I guess. There's a couple of photos that look pretty cool to me, but it'd be even better to get higher before these climbing teams get to the top of the crags to shoot across the rime ice. But even from here, it does look pretty amazing. It was brilliant fun photographing these climbers. It's not something that I've ever done before, and perhaps I missed out the most dramatic part of their climb, but nevertheless they do add some scale and drama to this rather magical ice-covered rock wall. And this is probably my favourite photo of the many that I took at this location and further up on the hill, just because the blue sky there, I think that adds an extra element, an extra point of interest. And I did actually bump into these climbers as they were descending the mountain, so they do now have all the photos that I took of them. We've stopped at what I think is going to be one of the best viewpoints of this sub-peak of Bidi and Ambian. So it's called Stob Corrin and Lochen, the mountain behind me. And you can see all these rime ice covered cliffs here, which look pretty fantastic. But what we're missing is a bit of a foreground. There's no real shape in the foreground that we can use because it's been trampled by hikers who've come before me. So I'm actually going to wander down slope a little bit and just see if I can find a slope to fill in the bottom right corner of my image. The great thing about overcast conditions when you're photographing snow and ice covered mountains like this is that it really takes all the colour away from the scene, and you get this black and white like appearance, this etching look, or a pencil drawing if you like. And I really love that aesthetic. It's very different to my other colour photographs, but it does place a bit more emphasis on structure and composition, and I think I've done fairly well there. This slope on the right hand side is pretty important, I think, to add a more dynamic line quality to the image and create a bit of extra depth as well.
Now, presumably the lock's below her.
The summit is just above us here. Well, I say just above us. We've got another 120 or so meters to go, and we'd run out of time today, really, if we tried to get up there. But we've just come across this rather nice pinnacle. And I wonder, whilst I'm filming here, if you can guess how I'm going to attempt to photograph this from this spot. Because I think the best option is actually to leave out the sky entirely and try to make a feature of this pinnacle with this snow slope that you can see just here creeping into the picture, to add just one extra layer. So it might end up being a focus bracket to do that and at a longer focal length, but I think that's a really interesting pillar of rock there covered in rime ice as it is. I had no idea that this stack was here. In fact, I've never seen a photograph of it before, which is actually quite surprising because it's certainly very photogenic, and I really enjoyed going through the motions photographing it, particularly with this rime ice helping to sculpt the rock and give it some real form, even though we have very flat lighting. So I'm pretty happy with this photo, but looking at it now, it does occur to me that some atmospherics, either in the form of cloud or snow, could really add some depth and stop the pinnacle from blending into that cliff in the background. So I've done a quick mock-up here to kind of simulate what I think snow might look like, and it does tempt me to go back when it's snowing or when it's cloudy to see if I can get an even more impactful version of this rather unique pinnacle. So I'm wondering actually, if I walk up to the slope on the right now, if I might be able to look down on that pinnacle with these hills behind. It might not work, I don't know, but you can imagine if I move up and to the right, I move the pinnacle down and to the left, and I might get a cleaner background, and it might make for another interesting photo. Unfortunately, the stack just isn't as interesting from this angle. I think you can't quite see its prominence to the same extent, and I had to work to even make it as pronounced as it is here, and it does get lost a little bit too much in the background. I mean, you can argue the toss on the previous image, but here I think it's pretty clear that you need some more separation. And this is roughly looking in the sunrise direction, so that might be one option for getting a bit more dynamic lighting to help separate the stack from the background, but I'm sure there's lots of other ways that you could do it. I did try shooting it in a landscape format as well, which I actually find a little bit more interesting, a little bit more effective, but you still have this problem with the contrast and also with the empty space towards the bottom left. I think it creates a bit too much imbalance in the image, but you've got to try these things and see how they work out, and on another day this could really work. That has been a fantastic day of photography and adventuring, but now we have to get down the hill. It's actually a while until sunset, more than an hour and a half actually, but we have got a massive distance down and on some quite technical ground, so we want to get all that out of the way whilst it's still light, get off the really icy sections, and then maybe we can stop, but more likely with the cloud thickening as it is, that will be the end of this video. And if you have enjoyed it, please do like and subscribe.